Our next presenter is working in Haiti, Sebastian Africano, with trees, water, and people.
So thanks to the GSBI faculty, this has been an amazing couple of weeks. We're very happy to be here. Hello to the panel. I represent Trees, Water, and People out of Fort Collins, Colorado. We are an organization that works to deliver efficient, affordable cooking technologies benefiting families and their environment. We work throughout Central America and Haiti and in East Africa. And I'm here to present the Zanmi Pibois Cookstove project. Zanmi Pibois in Haitian Creole means friend of the trees. And here we have just an example of what we're looking to work on is the elimination or the displacement or the repurposing of the skills of entrepreneurs that make highly inefficient cookstoves with a locally made and locally designed cookstove design that we've developed over the past 8 months in Haiti. So really the problem we're addressing is one of inefficient resource use. We can start down the harvesting of charcoal. It's generally ad hoc. Charcoal is transformed, or trees are transformed into charcoal in a very inefficient way, wasting 85% of the embedded energy in the original tree to produce a low-quality, low-diameter charcoal. There's not a lot of thick-diameter trees left that are being used for charcoal in Haiti today. Couple that with the inefficient cookstoves that are being made with bowls this size that are filled every day by Haitian cooks and that burn an unnecessary amount of charcoal to produce food for Haitian families. What that boils down to, no pun intended, is a $550 a year expense on fuel, representing about 50% of per capita income of a Haitian family in an urban area. So if just to put this into context, imagine your household income for the year, take half of it and light it on fire. Did that hurt? I mean, some fires are bigger than others, but in any case, it hurts. So what we want to do is correct the situation. The benefit of working with Trees, Water, and People is that we work both on the demand and the supply side. On the supply side, we are working with charcoal farmers and establishing tree planting plantations for the production of charcoal and working with them to find more efficient methods to produce charcoal. This is a charcoal kiln currently in a rural area in Haiti where that small diameter charcoal comes from. Why do people love charcoal so much? It's a very difficult fuel to get people to switch from because it's soot-free, doesn't get your pots dirty, firewood does. It burns very hot, 1100 degrees C, which makes it very effective at cooking your food and also destroys anything that tries to contain it. There's no need to tend the fire. You can start your pot of beans in the morning, dress your kids, send them to school, do your hair, come back, and your beans are still boiling. You're not tending the fire. And it's purchased in small quantities, so people can buy paint cans of it for about 75, 80 cents on the street and just use that to cook throughout the day. People go through about 2 of those a day. And why we want to lower consumption, it may be obvious, severe environmental and political costs. So the political costs are because Haiti has only 4% of its forest cover left. So a lot of the trees and a lot of the charcoal, 35% of the charcoal, in fact, coming into Port-au-Prince is from the Dominican Republic border area. There's a lot of contentious political issues there. High environmental costs, as I mentioned, you lose 85% of the energy value in the wood in the production process. Very high carbon monoxide, it's like having a car idling in your living room. And a large family expenditure, which I've already alluded to. So here's our proposition. You may have seen the stove as you walked in. That's a prototype of our robust, locally made stove. It saves families 40% in fuel costs. That's about $220 a year and represents about 20 to 25% of that pile you just burned, about 50% of that pile you just burned, excuse me. So that's recouped and used for other productive uses that the family might have throughout the year. It's got a 2-month payback period. That means with current charcoal prices and consumption, just by the virtue of using it, you actually recoup the investment in 2 months. Reduce exposure to carbon monoxide, creating healthier homes, and we provide a performance and quality guarantee. If people don't like it, don't think it's saving them money, which we've never had happen to us, we give them their money back and take the stove back happily. As far as larger impact, over the 5 years that we've projected the project for the purposes of this presentation, because we plan to be around much longer, we're going to save 35,000 tons. That's 35 million kilos of charcoal. That equates to about 200,000 tons of CO2, if you include in that the emissions during production of the charcoal. And we're producing well-paid jobs, about 3 times the average for the people manufacturing the stoves for us. What that equates to in terms of savings is $26 million in savings over 5 years for Haitian families adopting the stove. That we've projected about 133,000 households adopting the stove over 5 years. And what we're looking for today is a $360,000 investment to help us get started. That's a 72x return. Anyone gotten that in the past 3 years? And as a bonus, we're going to keep 100,000 trees in the ground in addition to the trees that we're planting every year in Haiti. So the market we're focusing on is in the Port-au-Prince area. All the surrounding population centers and cities really have congealed into this huge, massive urban area where 71% of the total charcoal consumed in Haiti is consumed. We see this as a market opportunity of $6.4 million a year, and there's about 200 to 250,000 other families in other urban areas outside of this red area that are also consuming charcoal on a daily basis. Also in the Caribbean basin, there's several isolated pockets of communities consuming charcoal, and this is a solution that's very applicable to them. So the market enablers, kind of the wind in our sails. We'll start with the Global Alliance for Clean Cookstoves. Trees, Water, and People, like I said, has been doing this for 13 years before Cookstoves were hip. And we participated very heavily with the Global Alliance, participating on 2 of the working groups, and they're looking for market-ready stoves that can reduce consumption by 50% in biomass and also reduce emissions by 90%. So we've taken them up on that challenge. The Haitian government drafted a national Cookstove initiative. We participated, commented, and advised on every single chapter of that initiative, which has a goal of dropping charcoal consumption by 20% over the next 10 years, and also reducing imports or eliminating imports beyond 2012. They are very keen on creating local jobs for local manufacturers and also keeping the Cookstove manufacturers employed, and we've also taken on that challenge. And the third enabler is the international carbon market. This is a $120 billion market that will essentially pay for emissions reductions. Those emissions reductions we're producing by not burning that charcoal, so we get paid for the absence of that emission. And they're currently valuing projects with high social impacts very well, and they have considerable experience in the biomass industry, so we're speaking to many players to see how best we can plug into that. A little bit of science. But don't get caught up in the numbers. What I want to show here, these are results from lab tests done at the Aprovecho Research Center in Oregon, an internationally recognized lab where we tested our stove against not only local Haitian cookstoves, but also an assortment of charcoal cookstoves from around the world, some that have been developed in labs with millions of dollars of R&D. Here I show just the Haitian competitors. So we're in time to boil, which is #1 for Haitian cooks, by the way. We are clearly faster and also faster than the average improved stove currently in the market made in Haiti. Grams of fuel to boil 5 liters and simmer it for 45 minutes. We're about 80% lower than the traditional Haiti baseline stove and about 40 to 50% lower than the average improved local stoves. And I've built my projections based on comparisons to that. Carbon monoxide, again, that tailpipe in the kitchen, that's what we want to reduce. We're obviously reducing that considerably, both by using the charcoal more effectively and improving combustion and keeping families healthier in that way. The columns that I didn't show were the international imports. And guess what? We beat them too, all with a local product that's at 60% of the cost. Here we show the cost differential in usage over 18 months. Using our stove, the ZPB, a family will spend a little under $500. While using the traditional stove, they spend around $820, $815 in charcoal expenditures. This includes the stove cost. And so you see this is our value proposition here, saving those families money. $330, in fact. So over the lifetime of the stove, that represents about a 16x return for the Haitian family for an investment of $20 in the Cookstove that we produce. So we've determined what the customer wants. We've been in the field. We're a field-based organization. I'm usually much dirtier than this. I had to actually dig this sport coat out of a closet to come give this presentation. But we do a lot of interviews a lot of outreach, a lot of observation on the Cookstoves that we deploy, and we've been able to go through about 6 iterations in 8 months as a result, improving the stove at every turn. What the customer wants, we've already been through this. She wants a quick boil, sustained heat, so a long simmering period, and savings on cooking costs. We've been able to provide all 3. What we want is lowering fuel use and lowering carbon monoxide, and the community also wants local jobs and disposable income, which we're also providing with our project. We have 1,800 units produced and on the ground currently, and we're getting feedback every day and passing them through this value chain. So in the value chain, just to simplify, we have 4 players. We'll say the implementing partners, Trees, Water, and People, and our on-the-ground partner, International Lifeline Fund. Manufacturing partners, our channel partners, and the carbon developer. We provide the R&D, field testing and monitoring, and capture the data from the usage in the field, including emissions or charcoal usage reductions, to report to the carbon developer. The manufacturer, we're creating relationships to scale up our production to produce a much higher quality product with better materials over time and drop our costs through economies of scales. Our channel partners are a very important part of this mix. We're partnering with Foncose, which is a national level microfinance group, consignment vendors and micro-consignment groups, something like the Solar Systems, who you'll hear from in a bit, and also large NGOs in Haiti who we're working with to keep a commercial approach to distribution, using their beneficiary communities to identify vendors and test marketing strategies. All of that translates into benefits for the end user, which are then collected in the form of data sent to the carbon developer and come back to us in the form of financing to keep the project sustainable. The carbon finance value chain, the way it works, just to give you a quick run through, we go through a 2-year process of validation of the model and also verification and certification of the Cookstove. During that, we incur significant costs in monitoring, evaluation, and making sure and proving that the stove does what it does, which we know it does. We're saving about 1.5 tons of CO2 per stove per year, so it behooves us to design a stove that can last as long as possible. And I'll tell you how we plan to do that. And from that, in year 3, we can expect an $8 return per ton of CO2, and that's a very conservative estimate, back into the project for uses in rebates, discounts, marketing, etc., all providing benefits to the customer. These are just some industry quotes. The demand for emission reductions generated in the developing countries could easily surpass 2 billion. There's a lot of questions around the carbon industry currently. We don't think it's going away. A lot of people agree with us, and we see a lot of value in plugging into it now and providing examples of projects that really work and provide a benefit to the community and the environment. So a couple of future directions. High temperature alloy to increase the useful life of our bowls, economies of scale in year 2 and 3, and new products including 2-burner cookstoves, providing a more complete solution to families because everyone likes to use 2 burners versus 1. Go through the financials very quickly. We have a rapid scale up, going from about 1,000 units a year next year to 4,000 units a year in 2015. This is the carbon finance investment that we have to make to achieve this return in year 3, which we believe is very possible, but that's where we need to get over the hump with a grant support of $360,000 made in this year. This is the team that'll get you there, almost 100 years of experience in the field, developing successful cookstove projects around the world, and this is the impact we're going to provide. Please feel free to take some literature, get in contact with me for more information about the project, including the charcoal side. We'd love to work with you.